The stagecoach rolled into Dry Creek just as the church bell struck noon. Every face on the boardwalk turned toward the dust, but one man looked away. Ethan Carter stood beside his wagon with rough hands wrapped around the reins. He had faced blizzards, stampedes, and lonely winters without blinking. Yet the letter folded inside his coat made his breathing uneven. It carried the name of the woman who had agreed to become his wife. When the stagecoach door opened, silence spread across the street. A young Chinese woman stepped onto the wooden step with calm, careful movements. Her black hair was tied neatly beneath a simple scarf. A faded hanfu rested beneath a weathered brown coat built for hard travel. Dust covered her boots, but her posture stayed straight. Her almond-shaped eyes slowly crossed the watching crowd before resting on the rancher waiting for her. Ethan forgot how to breathe. He walked forward, stopped several feet away, and shook his head. "You are far too beautiful for me." The words escaped before he could stop them. People whispered. The woman studied him without lowering her eyes. "You are not the man I imagined either, Mr. Carter," she answered quietly. For one long moment, neither moved. If this story already has your attention, take a moment to subscribe and stay with us until the very end. Some journeys begin with a single sentence, and this one changed an entire valley. The woman offered her hand. "My name is Mei Lin." Ethan looked at her hand before finally taking it. His grip was strong from years of ranch work. Hers was steady, neither weak nor challenging. They released at the same moment. "My wagon is waiting," Ethan said. "I expected that," Mei Lin replied. Without another word, they left the town behind. The road climbed through wide hills covered with yellow grass bending beneath a cold autumn wind. Dark clouds gathered over distant mountains while crows drifted above empty fields. For nearly an hour, only the wheels spoke. Finally, Mei Lin looked across the open land. "How long have you lived here?" 12 years. "Alone?" "Almost 6. She nodded once. She did not ask another question. After several miles, Ethan spoke instead. "Why would someone leave San Francisco and come all the way here? My father is gone. I'm sorry. He taught me that work keeps people standing after life changes." She looked toward the mountains. "I wanted honest ground beneath my feet." Ethan said nothing. The ranch appeared beyond a line of cottonwood trees. Its fences leaned in several places. The barn roof sagged. One shutter hung loose against the house. Nothing about it matched the woman sitting beside him. He climbed down first. "You should know something." She waited. "This place isn't much." Mei Lin studied every building before answering. "It is still standing." She picked up her own bag. Inside, the house carried the smell of old wood, smoke, and long winters. Dust rested on shelves. One chair had been repaired with fence boards. The stovepipe showed black marks where smoke had leaked during previous storms. Mei Lin quietly walked through every room. She checked windows. She tested doors. She pumped water from the kitchen well. She opened the food cupboard. When she returned, Ethan stood exactly where she had left him. "Well, the chimney should be clean today." He blinked. "The pump seal leaks." She glanced toward the barn. "The north fence will not survive the first heavy snow." Ethan stared. "You found all that already?" "My family farm depended on careful eyes." She removed her coat. "Where is your chimney brush?" He pointed silently toward a closet. Within minutes, soot drifted from the roof while Ethan watched from the yard below. He could hear movement inside the house. For 6 years, every sound had belonged only to him. Now another pair of footsteps crossed the floor. The feeling settled somewhere deep inside him, unfamiliar and impossible to ignore. Before sunset, she prepared supper from dried beans, salt pork, and coarse flour already sitting in the cupboard. When Ethan tasted the bread, he paused. "You baked this?" There was enough flour. Nothing more. During the meal, Mei Lin noticed an open ledger lying beside the table. She asked permission before touching it. Ethan nodded. She slowly turned each page. The ranch spends more than it earns. His eyes lifted. You counted that already? The numbers speak clearly. She placed one finger beside several entries. Too many cattle for the winter feed. Another page. Your supply costs keep rising. Then another. If the snow stays late, spring will become difficult. Ethan leaned back without speaking. Nobody had looked at his ranch this carefully in years. Outside, the wind struck the walls. A loose board on the barn knocked again and again. Mei Lin closed the ledger. We can repair this. The simple sentence lingered between them. Not I. Not you. We, before Ethan could answer, a horse raced past the ranch gate. Its rider never slowed. Something white fluttered from the fence post before disappearing into the darkness. Ethan stepped outside, pulled the folded paper free, and unfolded it beneath the fading light. His face changed. Mei Lin stood silently behind him. What is it? Ethan lowered the paper. Our nearest neighbor says this land no longer belongs to me. The letter carried no greeting. Only a warning. It declared that Ethan Carter had built part of his ranch across land belonging to Victor Blackwood, the wealthiest cattle owner in the valley. Unless Ethan surrendered the disputed pasture before winter, the matter would be taken before the county judge within 30 days. Ethan folded the paper slowly. He has wanted my creek for years. Mei Lin looked toward the narrow stream crossing the pasture. Water, he nodded. The creek never freezes completely. Every ranch around here depends on it. She read the notice herself. The measurements are different from your deed. They were never different before. She looked once more toward the distant fence line. Then someone changed them. Before daylight the next morning, Mei Lin left the house carrying only a notebook, measuring cord, and a small shovel. Ethan found her nearly a mile away studying the eastern fence. What are you doing? Looking. For what? She pointed toward a weathered cedar post. That post has stood here for many years. Then she walked another 20 feet. This one has not. Ethan frowned. How can you tell? She brushed loose dirt aside with the shovel. The ground beneath this post is fresh. She uncovered darker soil below. The older hole is there. 3 feet away rested a circle of packed earth filled with old roots. Ethan stood perfectly still. Someone had moved the property marker. He slowly turned toward the neighboring hills. Victor Blackwood's ranch stretched across the valley beyond the creek, like a kingdom waiting to grow larger. We need your land papers, Mei Lin said. Back at the house, they spread maps across the kitchen table. The oldest survey showed the creek entirely inside Ethan's property. The new notice claimed otherwise. The handwriting matches, Ethan said, but the measurements do not. Mei Lin studied every number. The surveyor copied most of the document. Her finger stopped. Only this section changed. A soft knock interrupted them. When Ethan opened the door, 15-year-old Tommy Briggs stood outside, with his hat twisting between nervous hands. My pa said not to come. What happened? Tommy swallowed. I was stacking feed bags behind Blackwood's office. He looked over his shoulder before continuing. I heard Mr. Blackwood tell 2 men the judge would settle everything before the first snow. Ethan's jaw tightened. Tommy lowered his voice even more. He also said your new wife asks too many questions. The boy climbed onto his horse without waiting for another word. Dust followed him down the road. Inside, neither Ethan nor Mei Lin spoke immediately. Finally, Ethan looked toward the window. They know about you already. They expected silence. She folded the survey carefully. They found questions instead. That afternoon, Ethan saddled 2 horses. We're riding into town. The streets grew strangely quiet when they arrived. People watched from porches without waving. Conversations ended as they passed. Mei Lin noticed every face. No one greeted Ethan. Inside the county records office, an elderly clerk searched dusty shelves before placing several books on the counter. "You have 1 hour." Mei Lin thanked him. She opened record after record: property transfers, survey maps, water agreements, tax records. She copied dates into her notebook with calm, careful movements. Ethan watched the front door. Half an hour later, she stopped writing. Here, she turned the book toward him. 3 neighboring ranches had lost land to Victor Blackwood during the last 8 years. Each case listed the same surveyor. Each dispute ended before the same county judge. Each owner eventually sold everything. "This is not chance," she whispered. As they stepped outside, a tall man blocked the boardwalk. His expensive coat carried no dust despite the muddy streets. Silver hair framed a clean-shaven face. Victor Blackwood smiled politely. "So this is your bride." Mei Lin met his eyes without speaking. Victor tipped his hat. "I hope Dry Creek has welcomed you." "It has been memorable," she answered. His smile remained. "I hear you visited the records office. I enjoy learning." "So do I." His eyes rested briefly on Ethan. "Winter is difficult for stubborn men." He stepped aside. "I hope you both make wise decisions." He walked away without looking back. Only after he disappeared around the corner did Ethan breathe fully again. He knows. Mei Lin climbed into the wagon. "Yes," the clerk told him. "Most likely." The ride home passed beneath heavy clouds. Neither spoke until the ranch came into view. "I have another question," Mei Lin said. "What is it?" "Who repairs your books?" "My books? Your accounts?" "I do." She opened the ledger again that evening. Numbers filled every page. Receipts, hay purchases, cattle sales, taxes. She compared each column. One payment caught her attention. "What is the Elk Creek Cooperative?" "A water company. You pay them every season." "Everyone does." She compared earlier years. The fee nearly doubled. It always bothered me. She continued reading. Then she looked up. "Victor Blackwood owns most of that company." Ethan stared. "How do you know?" "The ownership records were attached to today's filings." She closed the ledger. "He increases your water costs." She placed the land survey beside it. "Then he claims your creek." Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Rain began striking the roof. The front door burst open as the wind pushed it wide. Sheriff Nolan stepped inside holding his dripping hat. His face carried none of its usual calm. "Ethan," he said. "The court moved the hearing forward." "When?" 5 days. The sheriff hesitated before adding one more sentence. "And someone has already sworn that your wife came here under a false name." Mei Lin slowly rose from her chair. Every sound inside the house disappeared except the rain against the windows. She looked directly at the sheriff. "Who signed that statement?" The sheriff lowered his eyes. It was filed by Victor Blackwood himself. Sheriff Nolan placed the folded document on the kitchen table. "I had to deliver it." Ethan opened the paper. Victor Blackwood claimed Mei Lin had hidden her past, used a false identity, and deceived the marriage agency. The statement demanded that everything she said before the court be ignored. Ethan looked at her. "You never lied to me." Mei Lin answered with steady eyes. "I did not." He folded the paper. "That is enough for me." 5 days later, the courthouse overflowed with ranchers, merchants, church families, and laborers. Every bench was filled before the hearing began. Judge Harrison had been sent from Helena after complaints reached the state land office. Victor Blackwood frowned the moment he saw the unfamiliar judge. His confidence slipped only for an instant. The hearing opened with Victor's attorney presenting the altered survey. He spoke with polished certainty. According to the documents, Ethan Carter had crossed the property line years earlier and illegally claimed the creek. Judge Harrison listened without interruption. Then, Ethan's turn arrived. Instead of speaking first, he looked toward Mei Lin. She quietly carried 3 ledgers, copied records, and survey maps to the front table. Every movement remained calm. She placed the oldest survey beside the newest one. The measurements are different. Judge Harrison leaned closer. Explain. Mei Lin pointed toward the figures. The handwriting matches. Her finger moved lower, but these numbers were rewritten after the original survey. She opened another record. The same surveyor handled 3 earlier disputes. Another page followed. Each family later sold land to Victor Blackwood. The courtroom became still. Judge Harrison examined every page. Victor's attorney objected. The witness is not a surveyor. No, Judge Harrison replied. But she can read numbers. Quiet laughter spread through the room before disappearing again. Mei Lin opened the final ledger. The Elk Creek Cooperative raised water fees only for ranches beside this stream. She turned another page. The largest owner of that company is Victor Blackwood. Judge Harrison looked toward Victor. Is that correct? Victor answered slowly. I own shares. How many? Silence. Judge Harrison repeated the question. Victor finally admitted the truth. I control the company. Another murmur moved through the courtroom. Judge Harrison ordered the county clerk to produce every land transfer connected to Victor during the previous 10 years. Boxes of records soon covered the front table. Page after page revealed matching survey numbers, matching signatures, matching property transfers. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Judge Harrison looked directly at Sheriff Nolan. I want the surveyor brought before this court. The surveyor arrived before sunset. His hands trembled while answering questions. At first, he denied everything. Then Judge Harrison placed the original survey beside the altered copy. The ink differed. The paper differed. The measurements differed. Silence stretched across the courtroom. Finally, the surveyor lowered his head. Victor paid me. Nobody moved. He wanted the creek. The confession settled over the room like cold winter air. Victor stood suddenly. He lies. Judge Harrison struck the bench with his gavel. Sit down. Victor remained standing. The whole valley depends on my ranch. The law does not. Judge Harrison signed several papers before handing them to Sheriff Nolan. Victor Blackwood, you are placed under arrest pending charges of fraud, document forgery, and unlawful property claims. The sheriff stepped forward. For the first time, Victor Blackwood had nowhere to go. His shoulders fell. He removed his gloves without another word. People quietly stepped aside as he was led through the courthouse doors. Outside, evening sunlight broke through the clouds after days of rain. Weeks later, new survey crews restored every original boundary. Families who had nearly lost everything received corrected deeds. The creek remained part of Ethan's ranch. Winter finally arrived. Snow covered the fields in bright white. Smoke drifted peacefully from the Carter chimney. One morning, Ethan repaired the last section of the north fence while Mei Lin checked the cattle nearby. He looked across the valley. I said something foolish the day we met. She smiled softly. You said many things that day. I told you that you were too beautiful for me. She walked closer until they stood beside the finished fence. And now? He brushed snow from the post they had repaired together. Now I know beauty had nothing to do with why you stayed. Mei Lin reached into her coat and placed the first marriage letter into his hand. I almost turned back before boarding the stagecoach. Ethan looked up. What changed your mind? She glanced toward the ranch house where warm light shined through the kitchen window. I believed there might be one place where honest work could become a home. A distant calf called from the pasture. Both of them turned at once. The gate beside the creek had swung open beneath the weight